If you've seen the show Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, then you're undoubtedly familiar with Max, the character played by Skylar Astin who sings this swoony song.
I'm gonna dream about the time when I'm with you.
If you're like me, you would have fallen in love with him on the spot, waiting on bated breath for him and Zoe to finally get together. So how is it that only a few episodes later, the worst problem of the show by far was the problem with Max Richman? Here's what went wrong. Part 1. Hostile and entitled. If you're a girl, you've either been here or you know a girl who's been here. You're friends with a guy who seems great. He treats you well, he seems to genuinely care about you, only to find out he'd been nurturing romantic fantasies of you two the entire time, even though you're not interested in going there with him. How the guy reacts to the rejection tells you a lot about him. At first, Max reacted fine to what I want to be very clear is the nicest rejection ever.
I'm already losing my dad, and I can't bear the thought of losing you too. It's not the right time, and I'm not strong enough for it.
But things change once he finds out that Zoe has feelings for Simon too. It's not until he's completely sure Zoe will not pursue a romantic relationship with him that he's hostile. Up until that point, he interpreted her rejection as not now, later. But when it seems that later might be never, his entire persona changes, and the change is immediate. The first thing he does is imply that Zoe is doing something morally corrupt by having feelings for Simon, and that the right thing to do would be to have feelings for him instead. He tries to make her feel guilty for not returning his feelings.
And you wouldn't sing to which one of us? Your best friend or the morally questionable, totally engaged guy?
Max could have been disappointed without being angry, but anger is his first response, and someone who is angry feels entitled. The first real glimpse of his entitled behavior comes in the next episode when he asks her whether or not he should take the 6th floor job.
She'd never stop you from going after what you want. Was that the right answer?
No. But it just gave me my...
Instead of doing the selfish thing, Zoe tries to do the right thing. Again, he gets mad because she won't say what he wants her to say. This is meant to show how deeply he feels for her, but it's hostile. He tries to make her feel bad. This is also when he begins blaming Zoe for something she can't control, her powers, as if she's doing something wrong when she hears songs.
No, it's not fine, okay? You always have a secret window into my brain, and, I would love to know what you're feeling. Blame the powers again.
Right on back to reading other people's souls, then. Whether they want you to or not.
Eventually, his hostility towards Zoe reaches a head when he sings this song to her at the bar.
Baby, bye, bye, bye.
Now, I don't like to read too much into the songs because the show writers didn't actually write the lyrics, but this is a villain song if I've ever heard one. In all seriousness, it just shows that Max's interior mindset is not one of secret heartbreak. His open hostility and entitled anger is not a mere facade, it's how he actually feels. And at this point, I thought they really were going the villain route, and I was excited. Of course, they didn't go that route, much to my disappointment. Look, Max got rejected by the girl he loved. It only makes sense that he was going to have a rough second half of the season. But I can understand reactions like disappointed, upset, and hurt. But Max is none of those things. He's hostile. I'm not saying he had to remain Zoe's best friend and emotional support figure if it was too painful for him. If he needed distance from their friendship or even a clean break, I'd have no problem with that. Let me see. Have we ever seen a famous television couple in which a guy gets rejected by his coworker and best friend, so he removes himself from that relationship in a healthy way without being hostile?
You given any more thought to the transfer?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
But that's not what Max does. All of this is bad enough. We could leave it here. Max is one of those guys. But of course, Max doesn't leave it at that. He wants revenge. Part 2. He's unethical. His hostile behavior is bad enough, but he takes it to another level, seeking to hurt her through an act of betrayal. And it's not just any harmless betrayal, it's deliberate sabotage at their place of work. When Max moves to the 6th floor, his former coworkers find that his code has gone with him.
All of Max's files for the chirp have been deleted off the Git, and we can't run the next phase without his DSP.
Okay, well.
It's entirely possible, likely even, the show writers had Max do this for the sake of plot, but it reads completely differently based on what he does later. He refuses to give the code back to his team. When Zoe tries to give him an out, trusting he'll do the right thing...
This is my code. Which floor I work on and where I bring it should probably be my decision.
I agree with Max.
He instantly proves with a pointed speech that not only is he generally a bad dude, he's doing this because Zoe wouldn't go out with him.
To be honest, my first instinct was to go back to the 4th floor and give them the code since that's where it originated.
That's great, Maxie. Follow your instinct. I taught him that.
But then I realized that nobody ever really wanted me there. When I was deciding whether or not to stay, not one single person from the 4th floor fought to keep me. Until, of course, they all needed something from me, which is why me and my code are gonna stay right here on floor 6.
Don't take my word for it that this scenario is bad. If you need someone to tell you that a man, after being spurned by a woman he likes, taking it out on her in the workplace is not good, let the show tell you that.
Romeo there is just mad because you dissed him when he asked you out. You should tell him to go to hell.
I was surprised when they had this Maggie subplot calling out what they should be calling out. Did they not see any parallels with Max, who, let's be frank, acted much worse? A client being cold to a contractor is bad, but a colleague who steals work and undermines his former teammates, that's worse. Was it his code? No company would say so. This is the group's project. The chirp wasn't his idea. He was getting paid to contribute to part of a team, and he steals their code from the computer, refusing to give it back, and makes it very clear that it's because Zoe rejected him. You can't call it an out-of-character, in-the-moment thing. It takes planning and forethought. And let's face it, he still has no remorse for what he did. He certainly never apologized. It's unethical and would get him fired in a real-life scenario. Then, when Zoe rightfully calls him out later in the episode, he doubles down.
I was just taking care of me. It wasn't personal.
When I told you about my powers, I also told you that I was going to be 100% honest with you. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's the truth. I think it is personal. I think that you're mad at me. You are mad at me for not saying what you wanted to hear, and now you're trying to teach me some kind of lesson.
And that's exactly right. The thing is, this is Max's response to, let me reiterate, the nicest rejection ever. But even if all she had said was, no, I'm not interested, this would still be wildly inappropriate, incredibly unethical, and the kind of character-revealing situation someone cannot bounce back from. And when Zoe calls him selfish, an assessment I agree with, this is his response.
You are calling me selfish? Look, I have spent far too much time worrying about other people's happiness more than my own, especially yours.
First of all, if Zoe has been selfish with Max, it's only been in not returning his affections, something she's fully entitled to do without judgment or persecution. Second, he just made the point that he's angry because she wouldn't do the selfish thing and keep him by her side. She was a good friend and told him to go after what he wanted. It seems as if Max and the show can't even keep his story straight. Or maybe it just agrees with what Zoe's brother says in season 2.
Oh, but I feel like Max has put in so much more time.
I'd also like to note another moment of Max, yet again, moralizing.
Nobody down here understands why Ava wanted you in the first place, just FYI.
Maybe it's because I'm a good person.
Or a very selfish one.
It's a fundamental aspect of Max's character that he really truly sees himself as a good person, no matter what. At this point, he was behaving so poorly, I didn't think the show agreed with him. But even outside of this storyline, he's still awful. Which brings us to Part 3. He's a bad friend, boyfriend, and son. A thread you see throughout the show is that Max is very transactional in all of his relationships. He was a good friend to Zoe, therefore he deserves for her to love him. But when she does enter a relationship with him, he's awful to her as soon as she's not behaving the way he wants her to behave. The 3rd episode of the 2nd season, Zoe's Extraordinary Dreams, Max spends being upset that Zoe's not appreciative of him being such a good boyfriend. He wants her to be able to manage her grief, but he wants to be the one to help her. Because when Zoe mentions a talk with Simon, someone who he knows can help Zoe with her grief in a meaningful way, he gets jealous enough to actively try and make her feel bad. He goes as far as implying she was being unprofessional, trying to make her feel guilty for seeking help in the wrong person.
Simon, huh? Talk about that kind of stuff at work? That's cool.
He also tells Simon that he and Zoe are together without running it by her first, which doesn't give him much credit in his relationship with Zoe or his friendship with Simon. Clearly, he wanted to let Simon know, she's mine, and he wanted Zoe to feel bad for seeking comfort from someone who wasn't him. And in rare instances, the show seems to notice this as a problem.
Hey, he did. Why didn't he say something?
I thought you knew.
Solid point.
But it was never addressed again. And the episode ends with Max giving up on Zoe because she's grieving. Now, maybe this breakup was the right move for both of them, but let's be very clear. Zoe got dumped. He feels like he's been injured, like he's been done wrong because she's not overflowing with appreciation for him or joining him in the honeymoon stage. The delivery is not just that this is too hard, it's pretending that somehow she's at fault. He can't be content with, I'm not up to this, she's not up to this. Oddly enough, here's Zoe telling Max every single thing going on with her this episode.
Basically, it's just me alone, stuck in this house, and no matter what I do, I can't make it out the door. And then I wake up. There's no way I can go back to my place yet. My mom is not okay. Simon says it's pretty normal after a parent dies, so I'm trying not to obsess about it. I'm still having the bad dreams, Max.
He just doesn't want to hear that. Or he wants her to be magically fixed because he baked her something. So when Max sings Say Something, he's really singing Say What I Want to Hear. This example is indicative of Max's inability to deal with anyone who isn't treating him or behaving exactly the way he wants them to. He has an extremely egocentric view of the world around him. He looks at everyone in terms of their relationship to him and not as independent beings. He does this with Zoe, but also with Mo, his coworkers, and even his dad. He betrayed his coworkers as collateral damage in his issue with Zoe, but when he comes back and they willingly help him, he makes remarks like this.
Hold on a second. That might actually work. You know, I never thought I'd say this, but thank you, Tobin.
That's what I think. Why else would you have taken the 6th floor side? You've been there for a whopping 2 days.
I don't know, maybe because people actually like me on the 6th floor.
Maybe the show thinks that's cute, but after he betrayed him and had a chip on his shoulder about being unappreciated, it's a bad look to say things like that to people who are helping you. But what really surprised me was Max's relationship with his dad. I was already a Max hater by the time his dad showed up, but I was expecting this to be one of the few instances where I would sympathize with Max unreservedly. After all, the bad dad trope is a tried and true TV plotline that should have been a knock out of the park. It's almost impossible to screw up. Turns out, his dad is awful because he wanted his son to move close to home and work in his company with him. The horror! If you live in a city away from your mom, has she ever expressed the wish that you lived close? His dad offered him a job in IT too, so it doesn't seem like he's still pushing for his son to be a dentist.
We could use a good IT guy.
His dad doesn't act exactly the way Max wants him to. He can't accept his dad is a separate person, but you could hardly call the man unsupportive. He was willing to give Max the money he needed to start his business. And then, when Max's dad treated him like a businessman by asking questions about the idea, Max resented it. But when the dad treated him like a son and gifted him the money, he resented that too. He's probably too old to see his dad only in the role of parent to Max.
I'm trying, Max. I just don't know if I can get there yet.
You know what? You shouldn't have to try so hard.
He's a businessman being asked to make an investment, and Max is asking to be treated seriously. When his dad does treat him seriously, he instantly regrets it because he's hearing questions he doesn't like. But I don't think the writers want us to see Max as the immature one. I think they want us to hate Max's dad, which leads me to my final point. Part 4. The narrative's complete lack of awareness of Max's awfulness. Think back. Max never apologizes. He always feels justified. Apologizing is for other people. In general, Max doesn't own up to his bad behavior. Funnily enough, Zoe, who has nothing to apologize for, takes the blame for a lot of the second half of season 1. She is the first to make amends.
You know, I think I'm getting pretty good at finding my strength lately, but it's very hard to hold my ground when you play both the Joan and Ava and the cemetery cards.
As if standing his ground means being hostile and unethical. That's not an apology, that's Max forgiving Zoe. And Zoe says this to Mo in season 2.
Max is the most loyal guy that I've ever met. Inadvisably loyal. Seriously, you should have been over me months ago.
On the off chance the writers ever see this video, here's a question I want answered. Exactly what is Zoe sorry for? Really, what? What did she do to Max that was so horrible? Why is Zoe apologizing when all she's done is not reciprocate Max's feelings or even just express that she wasn't ready for a relationship with him, which she did in the nicest way ever? Why does a woman have to apologize for not feeling the way this man wants her to? And why does she apologize after he actively tries to take revenge on her in their place of work? There is one notable Max apology. It's to Mo. After he's treated Mo horribly, being passive-aggressive and pretending like he's the only one who cares about their business, he does apologize. After Mo does something for him by getting him an interview with Tatiana. Another example of Max being transactional by only apologizing when he gets his way.
Why would you think that? I care about this place just as much as you do, and I take it very seriously. I have a different process than you, and you need to respect that.
I look at his relationship with Zoe, and I can't warm up to someone who gets hostile when they're friend-zoned, someone who behaves unethically in the workplace, who betrays his team and his friend, someone whose niceness is conditional on getting what he wants. These are all the reasons why I wouldn't like Max no matter what. But what gives me extra passion about this is that the narrative keeps on telling me I should like him. After what went down in the second half of season 1, Max needed to say, "I'm sorry I made things worse when your dad was dying instead of better." But Max doesn't feel that way. In fact, he's still a little bit mad about the whole thing. So where does the show go from here? I might be outnumbered, but I'm definitely not alone. The writers will hear from the Max lovers more because they'll keep getting fan service, and the Max haters will just stop watching the show. Unfortunately, there are girls who all too frequently wind up going to the guy who treats them badly. But we shouldn't cheer for that, especially when the guy never said sorry. So I have 4 potential routes the show could take, each way better than the last. 1. Continue on as they have been, keep shoehorning Max in the awkward role of love interest, shoving him down our throats, making us watch him behave badly and yet having none of the characters notice and risk alienating viewers like me. 2. Retcon him into the perfect love interest he seemed to be in the first 6 episodes. This would still be horrible, inconsistent writing, but at least you won't be watching a character who continuously behaves badly. We can try and forget the train wreck that came before. 3. This is where it gets interesting. Give him a redemption arc. I mean a real one. Like a season-long minimum in which he has to earn back the trust and friendship of everyone in his life without expecting anything in return. He has to recognize his mistakes, apologize for them, and show real meaningful growth. Of course, that would require the show and the characters acknowledging his bad behavior, but a girl can dream. 4. The final route, and my personal favorite, make Max the primary antagonist of the show. This would be a great route to take because how many times has that really happened? The guy you rejected becoming an active problem in your life. Now that Danny Michael Davis is backing his business, give him an office at Sparkpoint and make him Zoe's workplace antagonist. It's a realistic storyline that isn't depicted as often as maybe it should be. This wouldn't be as hard to change as it seems. You wouldn't have to change Max's behavior, merely the reactions of those around him. Make Mo the one to identify it after Max acts hostile to him over something petty. Make Mo cut ties, and when Zoe tries to mend that friendship, Mo can tell Zoe that he won't be treated the way Max had treated her. There's your revelation. And then you have a great villain and a task that I'm sure Skylar Astin would be up to. What would this mean for Zoe's love life?
Back to Team Simon.
Or it could be someone else. Someone we've seen, someone new. It could be no one, but it can't be Max. I know that if the writers do what I want them to do, they will be angering a lot of viewers. But while some people are taken in by Max's superficial niceness, I personally side with Autumn.
You're a self-important, arrogant nerd who dresses like a third grader, and I never want to see you in here again.